Okay, welcome to Chapter 14. So Chapter 14 is about pop-up messages or pop-up windows. And almost all programming languages have some sort of a thing that pops up to ask you something or to tell you something. So this is no different than that. So on page 399, they start talking about dialog windows. So let's go see where we can find one of those guys. I'm going to switch over to the designer. Let's see where we're going to find a dialog window. Let's see, text, no. Buttons, no. Widget, no. Layouts, no. Okay, it's not a widget. That's not how these things are put together. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create a thing called a fragment. So a little bit of discussion about what a fragment is, because the example in the book is okay, but it doesn't really put it in the right context. A fragment typically is used as a part of a window. There's a really good explanation if you go to the website for Google, and they show an example. Like, here's a screen, like if you're on a tablet, and they have two fragments. They have a fragment over here for navigation and a fragment over here for whatever the heck this thing is doing. And then if you had a small screen, they swap out bits and pieces. So a fragment was really intended to have like multiple things on the screen at the same time. Now that's not the context that we're using it in. We're using it in the context of a dialogue where it's the only thing that shows up on the screen. A little weird. Okay. So yes, fragments. So what the heck is a fragment? Well, a fragment is sort of like a lightweight activity. You guys remember what activity is. You know, the activity life cycle in Chapter 6. Remember all that? Well, fragments are similar to that. They have a fragment life cycle, okay, which is very much like the other one. But they have their separate, a separate life cycle and a separate set of events, the whole shebang. So it basically is a miniature activity. And you're thinking, well, what's the point? Well, if you recall, okay. When it comes time to passing data between one activity and another, there's an awful lot of stuff you have to do. But if you're using a fragment, it becomes a little bit easier to do. So fragments are just like a convenience thing. Okay. Now, we're going to use, when we build our fragment dialog, we're going to use a thing called the dialog class. And the dialog class is actually pretty cool. And so you might be thinking, well, why am I using the fragment to do this if I can do this exact same thing with just the plain old dialog class? So there's an answer to that. And it talks about it's not possible to tweak like the layout or put a theme on it. And they even say something weird about it. It doesn't work well with the application's lifecycle and therefore could cause a crash. I'm not 100% certain that I agree with that statement. So just hang on. So what do we have to do to be able to pull this off? Well, what we got to do is we need to create us a brand new class. Okay. So this is just Java stuff now, right? I want to go here and I want to create me a brand new class. I say new Java class, and I don't know what we're going to call this guy. Let's just call him, I don't know. I'm going to call mine Kumquat. Couldn't think of a better name. All right, so the first thing we have to do is we have to inherit from this thing called a dialog fragment. So you guys remember how to do inheritance? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say extends. And then I'm going to say dialog fragment. This guy right here. Boing. Now it added an import statement for us. Woohoo! So I didn't have to do anything there. And so remember now, so now I've inherited. Cool. And so I need to create what's called an Oncreate Dialogue method. Alrighty. So I'm going to go here and as typical, it's going to be an override. That's normal, right? So this is going to be something kind of simple. It's going to be a public, and then it's going to return this thing called dialog. So a dialog an Oncreate Dialogue guy creates. So Oncreate Dialogue returns a dialog. That kind of makes sense to me. Okay, you remember how we had the bundle when we were doing in Chapter 6, where we had the on-save state, that kind of thing? So we're going to need to do the exact same thing here, because for the exact same reason, I need to be able to pass things to this. So this is going to be, you know, saved instance state. Like that. Okay, obviously I need to go in here and fix up a few of these guys by importing a few things. Okay, shoo! Alright, so far so good. So now I've created this kumquat class, and I've extended to make that, and now I've got an Oncreate Dialogue. And so in here I'm going to actually use the Dialog Builder, which is the old traditional technique. So this is like a candy wrapper around the outside. The outside is still the good old dialog box that's been around for years. And so thankfully there's a thing called a dialog builder. So I'm going to build an alert dialog because that's what it has in the book. So this is an alert dialog, and I'm going to use this thing called builder. Well, not like that, I'm not. I'm trying to get down to here. Okay, cool. So now I have an alert builder, and I'm just going to call it builder because this, right? No other real name is appropriate. Okay, n equals a new, and then I'm going to say a new alert dialog builder, and then I just tell it what my current activity is, which is going to be get activity. Okay, so that, see for a second why I got a, oh, I forgot to use, I said new, does that count? Okay, cool. So now I've built me an alert builder. And so the alert builder I'm going to use to put in messages and put in buttons and then return this thing that we're doing. Okay, so the first part we're going to do is actually pretty simple. It's actually just going to be, what do you want this thing to say? So I'm going to do builder dot set message. And the set message is going to be whatever. You know, I'm following in the book, it says make a selection. Although, quite frankly, that's probably kind of silly. Okay, so now I've built a builder, and now I'm telling the builder that I want it to say make a selection. Cool. And then I want some buttons. So I'm going to do a button set positive. This is kind of weird. Set positive button. How's that for kind of cool? Set positive button. All right, and I'm going to start out with what do you want the button to say? Well, I'm going to have it say okay or yes. Positive just means, well, if you had two buttons, one of them is going to say like yes or no, one of them is going to say okay and cancel. So the concept of positive and negative really isn't all that relevant, but let's just keep going. So what do you want the button to say? And then I need a new event listener. Now, I'm going to use the anonymous type thing because it just kind of sort of makes sense here. All right, so if you remember how this works is I would say I want new because it's an anonymous type, right? And then I would say something like dialog interface on click listener. Doink! It automatically went and put all this stuff in for me. And that's pretty doggone cool. The only thing it didn't do, which is kind of weird, is it didn't give me the semicolon at the end. I don't know why that is. But anyway, nevertheless. So here's my button. I'm creating a button, and what do you want it to do when something happens? To tell you the truth, I'm not even going to fill that part out, so I'm just kind of going to ignore that. I'm just going to put do something here. Because, it's just a demo, right? So let's do this again, and let's do a negative button. So far so good. Builder, set, negative button. And what would you like it to say? How about cancel or yes or no? Something. Cancel. Well, that helps you spell it right. And I want a new, and it's going to be the exact same thing, right? Dialog, interface, click, listener. And for some reason, I have to put my own semicolon in, those lazy SOBs. Okay, so then I'm going to do something else here, whatever that is, right? Okay, so now I've got a thing at the top telling me what the message is, and then I've got a button that says OK and a button that says cancel, and presumably they would do something. And the last thing we need to do, since this thing is designed to return a dialogue, well, then that's exactly what I need to do. So the very last thing in here is to say, okay, Mr. Builder, thank you for building. Now it's actually trying to do something. So I'm going to do right here at the end, I'm going to say return. And my guy, I just called him Builder, if you remember. Builder, create. Create means, okay, we're done designing the thing, and now it's time for you to actually make it happen. So this builds it. Okay, now, hey, just out of curiosity, do I have to have a positive and a negative button? I mean, can I have just one? Yeah. Is there like a third one? What if I wanted to have one up that I really don't even, like it's an error message or something. It just pops up with an OK. And I really don't even want to do anything when you click it. Like, all I want you to be able to do is like some sort of information that pops up on the screen and says, the answer is 12, and there's an OK button, and that's it. So as long as you click on the button, I don't actually want it to do anything at all. So there's a really cool shortcut if you don't want the event handler at all. Instead of just putting in, this anonymous class doodad, I would go in here and just, I would just change it to null. Okay, not in quotation marks, but just the word null, which means I don't have an event handler and I don't want an event handler. The button will still show up. It'll still work. It's just that why bother to write something like this when I don't have anything for it to do? Okay, so there's a really cool way you can shortcut. I do that a lot. Okay, so how do you call this thing? Well, as you can probably imagine, every single one of these classes have to be created, right? So I guess we're going to need a button to be able to do this. So I'm going to go back over to my guy. And let's just go grab us a button. And drag my button onto my guy. I'm not even going to bother changing its name, because that's not what we're doing today. And so I'm going to go down here to where we have the on click. And let's, how about launch fragment. Launch fragment. I'm going to save that guy. Cool. And remember, I go back over to here, and I have to create me a guy that's lined up with the rest of this, but not inside the class, but not, right? Remember all that good stuff? So I'm going to do, public void launch fragment view v. You remember how all this stuff works. Okay. You ain't never heard of Vue? Shame on you. So what I need to do here is I need to create an instance of the kumquat class. So kumquat k is equal to new kumquat. Okay. I just created an instance of that class. And then how do I launch this guy? Well, k dot, and then is there going to be something in here? What do you think I have in there to be able to pull this off? Is there perhaps like a show method? Yeah, a show. Now this part is a little kind of funky, and you're going to have to kind of pay attention because this is not really in the book. The show method takes two different parameters, as you shown here. One of them is called the Fragment Manager, and the other one is a Fragment ID. Now the Fragment Manager is actually easy for your head to get wrapped around, because the way it's designed is there's only one Fragment Manager for an application. And so you talk to the Fragment Manager and say, hey, Mr. Manager, I sure would like this fragment to pop up. And it's going to look at what your current activity is and what the fragment is and figure out how to lay one on top of the other. Kind of simple. And we're coming up on the 15-minute mark.